Hi and welcome everyone to our 98th episode of The Little Inside. As you might have guessed, my name is still Tobi. And this week I'm going to explore the question whether we are really good enough. Let's get started right after the intro. Many teachers, masters, many doctrines, and particularly modern popular spirituality emphasizes the fact that we are good enough. So many people would tell you, don't worry, you're good enough, believe in yourself, trust in yourself, you are worth something, you are as such as a being good enough, etc. So there's many of these kind of statements. If you browse Facebook, if you go online, you have Instagram or whatever, you can find all kinds of posts. At least if you're subscribed to any spiritual people out there, then you find a lot of posts that would reflect this, that we are good enough. So what does that actually mean? I am good enough. So this week's video is actually a little exploration of this question, am I really good enough? Because I believe that you can just accept something that you read online, right? Yes, I'm good enough. That post makes me feel good, therefore it must be true and I'm good enough. I think it should be backed up by some good reflection, by some good contemplation, and then finally also, of course, by practical personal knowledge of your own goodness. And so how to arrive there, how to actually make sure that we understand fully why we're good enough, I dedicate this little video. So the first question that comes to mind would be, what do I refer to when I say I am good enough? So there's three elements, right? You have the I, then you have either the assignment of good or bad, and then you have this word enough. When I say that I am good enough, first of all, what do I mean by I? When I look at myself, very often when someone encourages me, Tobi, answer me this question, who are you? What are you? I'm asking you right now, what kind of person are you? Then probably many things come into your mind, many ideas, a lot of content will present itself. And that content in your mind will tell you what you are. You are probably this or that. Maybe you are good enough, maybe not. There could be some doubts. There could be a speculation. There could be opinions, views, random thoughts. There could be distraction. There could be focus. Whatever comes to mind to give you a picture of who you are is not who you are. That is in fact just the way your mind has been conditioned to think when this question comes up. So when this question comes up, who are you? Then there's a certain conditioned response. I'm stressing the word conditioned because what we think we are is merely what we have learned to believe in over the years, throughout our lifetime. There is values that society gives us, there's values that our culture gives us, there's values coming from the religion that we're subscribed to, there's values coming from the internet, exposure to media, there's value coming through our friends, those people that we're associating with that support our own beliefs, etc. So all that means it is conditioned. So what you are thinking of yourself is just that. It is just a bunch of thoughts that you have learned to really be invested in and really think them to be true. So this is what we usually refer to when we say I. Another thing that you could refer to is just basic awareness. The fact that you are consciousness, that you are awareness as such. You're not just someone that has consciousness or someone that has awareness. You are that. That might be another way of identifying. You're here not identifying with thought and emotional content in your head and your being, but you are identifying with the actual background or the screen on which this content appears, which is awareness or consciousness. That is another possibility. It's by far more deep and profound, actually. So when I'm identified with the content, then the question might very easily arise, am I good enough? And now I have to browse through my content and have a look, am I actually good enough? Well, and then the brain will just give me instances. For some people, it's a more kind of a brain is geared towards more negative thinking. It says, no, you're not good enough because you did this. You're feeling shameful. You're not performing well at work. It gives you all these kind of examples why you're not good enough. It supports that direction. For other people, have a bit more positive brain. They go into this direction. It's a bit more positive. Well, you might be good enough, or you actually are good enough because you're kind, you're loving. And so we are browsing, flipping through the content of our minds, checking, do I pass? And so this kind of checking is very unreliable because it is conditioned, and it could change anytime. So today I might feel like I'm good enough, tomorrow not anymore. Then after tomorrow I feel again like, yes, I'm good enough, I'm worthy of love, etc. You can train that particular self-image so it feels good enough, and that is advisable. You can also train it the opposite way, which we unconsciously do very often. We're fueling our shame, our guilt, our self-loathing, etc. By habitually, unconsciously running certain thought patterns through our being. So waking up, becoming aware, becoming a bit more mindful gives us that option. So this is covering the I. When I say I am good enough, what do I refer to? Is awareness good enough? Is consciousness good enough? Well, here I can say yes. That always is good enough because it is not subject to conditioning. It is your primal, your basic state of being, devoid of any constructs, devoid of any fabrication. It is just simply your presence. And that, yes, without a question, is good enough. And this is good enough on the level of actual fact experience. When you're experiencing that state, you know it is good enough. It is perfect as such. But in the conditioned realm, you have an up and down, you have a duality, you have a constant change. And of course, there's always the doubt. Am I good enough? Am I okay the way I am? The second thing that I would question is, what is good and bad? So I don't really like the words good and bad that much. I'd rather prefer skillful and unskillful. Because good and bad are measured, in my opinion, first of all, by the intention that we have, then by the action and by the outcome of that action. So, for example, if you have an intention that is skillful, it will lead to skillful actions, which will lead to happiness, directly and indirectly. If you have an unskillful intention, an unconscious intention very often, because when we are conscious, we wouldn't opt for unskillful intentions, unskillful actions, then the outcome would be unpleasantness or suffering, right? So we have this duality of good and bad, skillful and unskillful. This is what I understand. I'm not saying that good and bad do not exist. There are good actions, skillful actions. There are bad actions, unskillful actions. And I would say that good actions are those actions that lead to happiness, and bad actions or unskillful actions are those actions that lead to suffering. And you can clearly distinguish them. We all have more than enough experience to back that statement up. Yes, there is such a thing as a cause and a result. And based on the cause, the result is similar. So, or it is in alignment with its cause, we can say. So therefore it is important not to negate that there is no good and bad, everything is equal and balanced. That is a nicely sounding philosophy, however it doesn't have any footing in reality. So it's important to actually really contemplate that for yourself. If you act in certain ways, then suffering is the result. This is undeniable. Like if I drink poison, I'm going to experience a whole lot of pain in my body. There is a cause, there is a result, and I'm going to experience that pain. It's undeniable, and it will be undeniably uncomfortable. So it's important to recognize that. There is good and bad, there is skillful and unskillful. Now, thirdly, what about the word enough? What do we mean when we say enough? Am I good enough? Doesn't that kind of suggest that there is some instance that judges you in some way, and that says kind of like, yeah, you're passing, you're an 8 out of a 10, and kind of, yeah, that's good enough. It might even arise from the grading system in our schools, that question, am I good enough? Have I made it? Or maybe the judgment of your parents. When they shouted at you, you realized, oh, what I have done or who I am is not really measuring up to their expectations. So it's not enough. There's this idea of enough. And again, the word enough belongs into the conditioned realm. Is it good enough or not? In the unconditioned realm, in awareness itself, in consciousness itself, there is no question that it is enough. Because it even goes beyond enough or not enough. This is, again, it's another duality, isn't it? It's based on numbers and masses. Enough, not enough, statistics, right? In the unconditioned realm, all that plays no role. There's no such question, is it enough or not enough? It's just self-evident. And so, yes, having that experience, you can refer to it as being a complete enoughness. Everything is fine there. Yes. But in that experience itself, whether something is enough or not enough, it doesn't play any role. Because all that would again be discursive thought. It would again be like creating realities of enough, not enough, etc. Because enough always is existing in dependency on not enough. There's a duality there. Because otherwise enough wouldn't make much sense if we wouldn't have the polar opposite of not enough. So here again, this enough points to seeking ourselves in the conditioned realm. We're trying to find ourselves and our value and the meaning of our existence within this mess of thought, within this mess of emotions, within this very irregular kind of reality that we are experiencing day in, day out, whether it is inside of ourselves or around ourselves. We try to make sense of this inexplicable, ineffable universe that we're confronted with from moment to moment. And it's trying to make sense. Who am I in this vastness? Who am I in this vastness? The inner universe is just as vast as the apparent outer universe, isn't it? So we are trying to make sense of that. And who am I in that? Who am I in society? Who am I relating to other people? Who am I in life? So, important to make that distinction. When you are practicing properly, you're coming into the unconditioned experience of just knowing. There is no such question. All the conditioned stuff, all the fabricated stuff in the mind falls away. It loses its relevance, its density, its thickness, its heaviness. Because it is looked through. It is looked through as dreamlike, as almost like a mirage. It's not really substantial, these kind of thoughts. And so you get to know yourself on a completely different level. But on the level of thinking, there is always the risk that you might be wrong. So there is always this speck of doubt that is nourished by fear. I might not be really good enough. I might just think that I'm good enough, but I'm maybe not really good enough. And you see, we also identify ourselves with our actions very much. So if somebody does something, like let's say I'm performing an action that will lead to suffering, then the suffering arises, and afterwards I feel like I am bad, or I am an unskillful person. That is not true. Even in the conditioned realm to say such things is not true or skillful in any way. It means there you have performed in a way that leads to suffering, and that's just that. And now you have an option to undo that. You have an option to apologize. You have an option to make it good again. So there is no place really for guilt, for dwelling on me being a bad person essentially. Then there is just action and result. So we can act in a way that is uplifting. We can act in a way that leads to downfall and misery. And that is a very healthy choice that we can make. That has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It has much more to do with what do you do and what's the result of what you do. It's very practical, it's very down to earth. So in short, my conclusion is, yes, we are good enough on the realm that is ultimately reliable, that doesn't change, that is not conditioned, the realm of the knowing mind, the awareness itself, consciousness itself. We definitely are good enough on that realm. On the other realm, on the conditioned realm, there will always be some sort of doubt and restlessness and uncertainty. Because things just change around all the time. Things and inside and outside. So it's not really reliable. Therefore I say if you want to find yourself on the highest level, on a level that is ultimately reliable and free and trustworthy, then you have to go all the way and arrive at your innermost core, the core of your being, the core of awareness, however you want to call it. There's so many words for that. You have to arrive there. You have to get to know yourself on a different level. On the other hand, when you are in the conditioned realm, you can still think in these terms. You can still think, yes, deep down inside, I know and I have faith that there is awareness, that there is consciousness. It might not be my direct living experience or a sustained living experience yet, but I have a glimpse, or I know, or I trust, I have faith in it. And so therefore, I'm basing my actions on that. And I find that I can trust, I have some faith that inside of myself I am inherently perfect. But I do not make the mistake of taking this concept, this thought, applying it to the messy, conditioned me, which then would result in what? I am the best. I am perfect. Everything I do doesn't matter. Everything I do is great. That is not true. So as you see, this is a question that is not as easily answered. And if you are actually questioning these various posts online, if you're actually going a little bit deeper, you're using your intellect, you're using your thoughts, and you're using your insight, you're using your direct understanding, your direct realization of the teachings to look into that and actually respect these quotes enough, to care enough to verify them for yourself, then you will come to the same conclusion. The conditioned realm is always an element of uncertainty, irregularity. It is not really trustworthy. The unconditioned realm, however, is the opposite. It is trustworthy. It is beyond regularity and irregularity or any duality. Therefore, it is a reliable refuge. And this would be something that I recommend to strive for. The way to get there is through meditation practice, through kindness, through building your ability to see clearly all the conditioned phenomena that arise and pass within our consciousness, and gradually go deeper under the guidance of a qualified spiritual guide who has been there, who has experienced that for him or herself. So this is all that comes to mind for this week. I hope it was helpful, and I hope it gave you some food for reflection and food for practice. And if you do have any questions, feel free to write them down in the comment section below. Always happy to read your comments. And I'm looking forward to see all of you guys again next Wednesday for the 99th episode. And for now I say goodbye.